By now, you should have a fairly good understanding of what Twitter is and how to achieve success with it. You know what Twitter's strengths are, you know how to set up an account, and you know how to make this part of a larger brand and synergistic digital marketing strategy. Also, you have created lots of inroads to your brand and ensured there are plenty of ways for people to find you. On top of that, you're now filling your account with great content that will attract more followers, keep existing followers interested, and encourage lots of retweets and shares. This alone is enough to ensure that you have a steady momentum and that your blog will grow over time. Unfortunately though, it's still going to be a slow process if that's all you're doing, and it still involves a lot of work. That's why these next two videos are so important. This video is about working smart with Twitter instead of working hard. It's about streamlining your Twitter workflow, and it's about learning how to get more done in less time. Better yet, the next video is about finding ways to hack your growth and to jump straight to the top, leapfrogging your competition along the way. For those who have read the 4-Hour Work Week, this approach should be fairly familiar. This is about applying that 80-20 rule to your Twitter marketing efforts and putting more time into the aspects that get the real results. At the start of this series, we mentioned how Twitter had grown and now came with a host of tools and other features that you could benefit from, making it even more powerful. The following are just some tools that you can start using to make succeeding on Twitter that much easier and that much less work. First of all, there's Buffer. Buffer is a very simple tool that Twitter fans love. The idea is that you can buffer your tweets, essentially by queuing them so that they post automatically at set times. The thing to recognize here is that having a Twitter account that is completely quiet and empty is one of the worst mistakes that you can make. If your Twitter account has been abandoned and you haven't posted anything in the last 2 months, this will lead people to wonder whether you might have gone out of business. In the best case scenario, it will look as though you don't have the resources or the know-how to use Twitter, or as though you don't understand its importance. In short, it'll make you look unprofessional and thereby do more damage than having no Twitter account at all. Buffer gets around this problem by guaranteeing a steady flow of content, while also reducing the amount of time that you spend creating it. That's because you can set aside a few hours and write, say, 1,000 generic Twitter posts, and then let them be published every day for the next 1,000 days. No matter what happens, your Twitter will never be empty. And you can sign up at buffer.com. Then there's Hootsuite, and Hootsuite is not one social media tool, but really several built into one very convenient platform, and it has a lot of powerful features. For starters, Hootsuite could do everything that Buffer can. Buffer is better suited to people who don't want to deal with all the complicated functions available through Hootsuite, but at the same time, Hootsuite does let you manage multiple accounts. It lets you see various different social media streams in one place, and it lets more than one person log in, which can be very useful for teams who share their media duties. It makes cross-posting useful, and it even emails you with free reports. If you're serious about your social media and you've been around long enough to have a basic understanding of how it all works, then you should find that Hootsuite helps to streamline the whole process for you. This is a paid-for service, but at the time that I'm making this video, there is a 30-day free trial offer, and you can find out more at hootsuite.com. Another tool is IFTTT. Enough good things cannot be said about this incredible tool. IFTTT stands for If This Then That, a familiar phrase to anyone with a little experience in programming. What this does is to list all your different social media accounts and all your online apps together by creating recipes. Recipes are comprised of some kind of trigger event and an action that this causes. So for example, you can set up a recipe so that every time you post a comment to Facebook, it's also posted to Twitter. But it gets far more advanced than that. You can set up IFTTT to save all your tweets to a spreadsheet on Google Drive. You could also get IFTTT to share Instagram photos with a certain tag to Twitter, so that only certain types of content gets shared. You can even do things like controlling the temperature of your house via Nest by sending emails. This is an incredibly powerful tool and has almost unlimited uses. Think creatively and you should find it has plenty of potential for your Twitter marketing campaign. How about setting up IFTTT so that topics that get upvoted enough in a certain subreddit get shared to your Twitter? That way you'll have completely automated and highly relevant content for your Twitter account. And you can sign up at ifttt.com. Finally, there's BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo is a tool that allows you to quickly find content in a specific niche that's performing well on social media. Once you're using the tool, you'll be able to easily browse through various different posts that are getting a lot of attention. From there, you can share them to your own social media accounts. This is useful because it saves time and provides a quick and simple way for you to find more content. What's even better, though, is that you know this content is performing well and getting lots of shares, so it's likely to get you lots of shares too. Even if you don't share the actual content on BuzzSumo, you can always use it just to see what kinds of things are performing well. This way, you can get ideas for your own type of content and get a quick overview of how your niche or industry is performing. And you can find out more here at buzzsumo.com. A word of warning though, don't overdo the automation. If you use the right combination of tools and settings, then you should find that you can automate a great deal of your Twitter marketing. Even if you don't write regular posts anymore, your Twitter will now be populated with content on a recurring basis using Buffer, every time you post a new blog, every time you post a new YouTube video or like a YouTube video, every time something good comes up on Reddit, every time you post to Facebook, whenever you post to Instagram. Some marketers will even take this one step further and will have their Twitter accounts respond to comments automatically using bots. Now that's a lot of auto-generated content and a lot of time saved, and generally a great way to maximize your ROI for the time that you're putting in. But don't get too reliant on these methods for filling your needs. If you do this, you can end up with a social media channel that's entirely soulless and doesn't add any real value. Gone will be the personal insights, the tailored content to your market, or the lifestyle promotion that we discussed earlier. The same wording will be used every time for certain actions too. For example, I liked a video on YouTube, and then you have the URL. What's worse, you might even end up with duplicates of the same content or with content that doesn't quite make any sense. If you use Buffer too much, you'll end up with content that doesn't express your mood, that doesn't reflect what's in the news, and is just frankly generic. It'll lack the spontaneity or relevance of content that you upload yourself. With Buffer, the posts come at the same time every day as well, and this alone can be enough to prevent those posts from seeming natural and organic. People will be able to tell you if your Twitter posts have no personality, so don't let this happen, and use these auto-generation techniques sparingly. This is only for keeping your social media channels active. The life and soul will come from you actually writing new content and reacting to what's going on in your life. There is a way you can create a compromise situation and streamline the process of uploading content and avoiding periods of no new posts, but while still writing it yourself. The simple trick is to download some apps for your various social media accounts such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and the official ones usually work best. Now it's really easy for you to comment on something that's happening or is on your mind, and it should only take a couple of minutes to do this whenever the inspiration strikes. And to prevent yourself from forgetting to do this, you can also set up some times of the day and some rules as to when and how you're going to post. For example, How about making the decision to post new content every time you go to the kitchen to make a cup of tea? You could even make this easier by having a separate tablet or smartphone just for posting to those accounts. Try taking an old Android tablet and keeping it in your kitchen with the Twitter app installed, or even leaving it on your assistant if you're not too worried about hygiene. While it's not a separate app or tool, Twitter Analytics is a very powerful force multiplier that belongs in your strategy and which can greatly enhance your effectiveness. To find Twitter Analytics, simply go to analytics.twitter.com/about. From here, you'll be able to log in and find your account statistics, and these will show you how you've been performing over the past month. These include tweets, how many tweets you've posted in that month. Tweet impressions, how many times your tweets have been shown. Profile visits, how many people have visited your profile. If this is much higher than your new followers, you need to ask why your profile isn't converting. Mentions, how many people have mentioned your brand. More about this later. Top tweet, which of your tweets got seen the most times. Top media tweet, which of your links got seen the most times. Top follower, which of your followers has the most followers and best engagements. Keep this in mind when we get to the section on influencer marketing later on. Top mention, which mention received the most attention and engagement. Use all this information to ascertain which parts of your campaign are working and which need more work. As a result, you can hone your process to ensure that you're maximizing your potential impact. You might think we've covered an awful lot of what makes Twitter tick at this point, but you're still missing out on something pretty important: the social aspect. So far, we've only discussed creating content and putting things out there. But of course, Twitter isn't just about output. It's about input too. This is a communication tool and a social network. In other words, you need to think about responding to comments as much as you think about creating posts from scratch. Better yet, you need to think about how you can encourage engagement and interaction. This will make a big difference to the way people see your brand, and it will greatly improve your chances of getting shared and retweeted. What's more, by leveraging this social engagement correctly, you can see sudden growth. This is where the growth hacking aspect comes in, so why don't we start with that? If you're new to Twitter and you post a tweet to your audience, then you may get it seen by, say, 100 people, maybe 1,000. This is pretty good. If your post gets retweeted by one of those 1,000 people and they are an average user, then it may get seen by 100 to 300 more people on top of your original 1,000. This is also pretty good. Better yet, if someone enjoys that tweet, they might start following you. Thus, you've got a new follower. But imagine if your post were retweeted by someone like Bill Gates. Suddenly, that message would be seen by millions of users. He currently has 24.6 million followers, thousands of which would probably retweet it to their thousands of followers. Some of Bill Gates' own followers would probably have millions of followers in their own right, so this effect would be repeated potentially many times over. You would get hundreds of thousands of new followers this way and would increase your influence drastically overnight. That's a growth hack because you've gone to 1 million followers overnight instead of taking it the usual several years. This particular growth hack is using a technique called influencer marketing, where you're relying on the influence of someone already established on Twitter to give you that boost and that head start. Now, influencer marketing will always involve an element of luck, and you can never guarantee that it's going to work. Still though, it's well worth a try, and by targeting influence with content tailored for their appreciation, and even sometimes mentioning them in comments, you can potentially see amazing results. Oh, and a tip: don't go after Bill Gates right away. Instead, aim to start with smaller influencers, such as prominent members of your niche or your industry. Look for someone with about 1,000 followers and then someone with 100,000 followers and build your way up to the top. You can also get great success from mentioning other businesses and having them mention you. That way you can quickly share your followers with one another. This can even work with direct competitors, but you're more likely to be successful with business partners and companies that provide supplementary services to your own. If you build websites, then looking for an SEO company and promoting each other is a good strategy. Again though, aim for people who are on a similar level to you to begin with. Here's a quick tip for any kind of influencer marketing. Real-world strategies always work best. Too often people find the email address or the Twitter account of an influencer and think, great, a connection. In reality though, that person is not a connection. A connection is someone who actually feels that they know you, at least a little, and who is willing to help you out. You can accomplish this in 2 minutes if you meet someone in person, whereas it takes a lot longer to get to that level via emails. This is why networking events and trade shows are so valuable. Find the influencers, introduce yourself, and have a human chat. Do not try to get anything from them. Then, a few weeks later, post something related to what you spoke about, or perhaps that you think they'll find interesting, and then tag them. Don't force the issue, but your chances of a retweet just went up significantly. You can also use your real-world networking skills to get regular followers on board. If you run a retail store and someone visits, you can tweet a photo of them with you, or you can message them to say thanks. People love this as it feels a little like being famous, and if you're lucky they may retweet that message to their followers. This is particularly useful for local businesses. If they're a local customer, then chances are their connections also live locally. In the next video, I'll talk about some more ways you can engage with your audience. In addition to the advice I gave you in the last video, you should also be thinking of ways that you can increase engagement with your broader audience. How do you get people to not just glance over your posts, but to actually read them, to comment on them, and to view you as almost a contact they can trust rather than a faceless brand? Right away, following the advice we've covered, such as being more personal and open in your posts, can help a great deal. At the same time though, you can use some of the following strategies. A very underutilized strategy on Twitter is simply to follow people. Because if you follow someone, you gain their attention, especially if they don't have a ton of followers. Suddenly they feel excited that someone, even a brand, is interested in what they have to say, and they check out your page. More often than not, they'll follow you back. The same goes for retweeting. Retweet the things that people have to say and they'll feel obligated to you. Suddenly, they'll be much more likely to retweet whatever you have to say, in part simply because they feel somewhat obliged to return the favor. Obligation and reciprocity is a very powerful emotion in business. Again, this works best if you don't apply it to the huge players who won't even notice you. Do it to people who are a little lower down the pecking order than you and try to benefit them in doing so. It's no skin off your teeth as long as their post is relevant to your audience, and it will still gain you followers when they return the favor. You can then scale this up as you climb the ladder and gain more and more followers. Want people to comment and engage you in conversation? Then simply invite them to. Adding a "what do you think" or "opinions please" to the end of a message invites discussion and is much more likely to result in proper engagement. Also, think about what you're posting about. Does it naturally lead itself to discussion? And of course, to make your account seem active and engaging, you should also make sure you answer everyone whenever possible. If you've ever read Kevin Kelly's blog post 1000 True Fans, then you'll know what an impact even a single fan can make. Don't take your followers for granted. They're worth the investment of your time. If you haven't read the post, you can do so at kk.org/thetechnium /1000-true-fans. Finally, if you want to draw in a lot of new followers quickly, another powerful strategy is to run some kind of event. This might mean a competition or a giveaway, or it might mean a live Q&A. Either way, something like this can get people talking, it can generate buzz, and it can be exciting for the followers you already have. Think about things you can do that will be fun and different, and that will stand out. How about challenging your visitors with some kind of brain teaser? Or maybe volunteering to retweet the best comment about your new product? How about letting your users name your new comment? It's something to consider. We mentioned at the start of this video series that Twitter was perhaps one of the most flexible tools for social media marketing. If you just do everything we've covered so far, then you'll have a powerful social media account that will grow rapidly, especially if you combine the strategy with great quality content and some creative ideas. But to get the very most out of Twitter, you should also consider some of its other features. For instance, Twitter advertising and reputation management. Twitter is a powerful tool for public relations because it gives you a direct means of communication with your audience. This in turn means that you can control the way your brand is seen, and it even allows you to respond to comments, criticisms, and bad reviews. One aspect of this is the power of reputation management. Reputation management is a service provided by many online agencies that changes the way your brand is seen by people researching it online for the first time. This involves the process of responding to reviews and encouraging positive feedback, but it can also mean responding to comments and discussions about your brand. This aspect can be handled very easily on Twitter. To find mentions of your brand on Twitter, you can simply search for it using Twitter's built-in search tool. Hootsuite can do this even better, as can using Twitter's advanced search option. Either way, you can now see when someone is talking about you on Twitter, and this gives you the opportunity to respond. Make sure that you write something positive and not defensive or retaliatory, even if it's responding to something negative. Also, don't ignore the positive comments you receive. Instead, consider favoriting the comment, which might get you a new follower, or respond to them and thank them for the mention. You can do the same thing by responding to reviews and putting forward your own point of view. Do be careful not to unnecessarily attract more attention to bad press, though. It's a fine line to walk. In fact, there are lots of ways that Twitter can have the opposite effect of the one you want when it comes to your reputation management and public relations. There are countless examples of celebrities and even businessmen and women saying things on Twitter and other social media channels that make them look out of touch, petty, or stupid. Don't let this happen to you. Follow these 5 points. 1. Don't be negative about other brands and don't pick fights. 2. If you are the face of a professional brand, try not to be opinionated on divisive topics. 3. Stay away from politics and religion unless you feel very strongly. This is a risk you may still decide to take. 4. Research your facts and make sure that you know what you're talking about. 5. Avoid sweeping statements. If you're struggling to get momentum naturally on Twitter, then you can always pay for a little bit of a jump start. Twitter advertising is called promoted tweets, and this means you'll be able to pay to get your tweet seen by a wider audience. Your tweet will then be seen by more people, though the audience will still be specifically targeted to ensure they're relevant to your niche. You can schedule the tweet, in a similar manner to Buffer, so that it will appear at a specific time of day and will not be shown to your followers unless you want it to be. Of course, you can use Twitter advertising to directly sell a product, but very often it can be used simply to get more people to start following you. This is a great way to get more people to become aware of your brand, and while ROI might be slow in coming, it can be an effective way to attract people you might otherwise not be able to reach. For more advanced marketing though, Facebook ads are far more flexible and powerful, as is Google AdWords. As your social media accounts and blogs should be working synergistically, you might do better to advertise in these places rather than directly on Twitter itself. In the final video of this series, I'll help you put together a Twitter strategy you can start to implement right away. So there you have it, a complete guide to how you should start getting the very most out of Twitter. Hopefully this has fueled you with some inspiration and ideas to help get you started, and you should be raring to go. In case you're a little overwhelmed though, here's an outline for a strategy you can begin employing right away. First of all, create a strong logo and brand. Incorporate this across countless social media sites as well as on your main blog. Secondly, create connections between your accounts so that some content will be auto-generated. Add some content to buffer to ensure your Twitter never looks dead. Make it easy for yourself to post images and comments with the right apps. Stop posting adverts for your product or service. Start posting about the niche, the lifestyle or the industry that you deal with. Make sure your content inspires, helps and entertains. Provide value. Comment on news and important events. Use the right hashtags to help your content get found. Engage with your audience. Encourage them to join in with conversations. Add new users and retweet their best content. Use ad swaps and influencer marketing to hack your growth and start getting higher faster. Gradually interact with users that have higher and higher numbers of followers. Utilize the power of your real-world connections and work with business partners to access their followers. Launch events and competitions to generate buzz and get people excited. Look for mentions of your brand and respond to them. Consider promoted tweets for a boost. The key is to make sure you're always providing value. Combine this with strong branding and lots of opportunities for people to find your content, and you won't go far wrong. Good luck and happy tweeting.